Thank you very much, Mike. First, I'd like to start by thanking all of the members of the Hall of Fame Committee, of course, Mike, John Cahill, Jim Keating, and everybody involved in putting such a great evening together tonight for all of us. I would like to especially thank Kathy Daniels. As many of us here in the Hall of Fame Committee room know, Kathy is very involved in putting all of these things together. She does an absolutely fabulous job behind the scenes. I am not going to lie, though, I am trying to get on Kathy's good side a little bit. I promised her leading up to this that both Coach Tursi and myself would only speak for 2 to 3 minutes. I think all of us who know Coach Tursi know that that's very unlikely to happen. I'll try to move it along. The introduction of Coach Tursi to our Hall of Fame is a very, very special moment for all of us who have ever been involved in a modern-day track program. For anyone in the room who is unaware, Coach took the reins of the cross-country and track program for the boys in 1989, and he is still here. Monsignor Bowman was still the pastor. Frank Outwater was still at Modern Day. Back to the Future 2 was showing on the big screen. And the Nintendo Game Boy was my favorite thing as a 14-year-old. Coach is still here, and there's something to be said for that. For my remarks tonight, it will certainly not be Mike. It will be Coach Tursi. The word Mike just isn't in my vocabulary for this man. I've wondered all week what the best way to properly do this would be, and if I could have my way, I would bring up a lot of people. I would bring up Coach's mother, Dolores, who's here tonight. I would bring up his wife, Leanne, who Coach married in the great state of Ohio. Just 1 week into my modern-day cross-country career in 1990. She would probably take the mic and tell you how her husband cared about each of his athletes, how he remembered all of their names and accomplishments years after they left the doors of Modern Day. She would also tell you, more importantly, the incredible example he set as the consummate father and family man. She might finish by saying that he scrapped the mustache finally in those very short running shorts. My next speakers would be Coach's daughters, Megan, Amanda, Mary. They would probably tell you the love and the emotion their dad always had for them. Megan would probably tell you how he drove 15 hours out to Iowa to see her compete in the NCAA cross-country championships, most likely running around the course somewhat like a lunatic. But there is no doubt in my mind he was at every point in that course. I would certainly have invited Dennis Flynn. Dennis, if you could stand up for a second. He's been with Coach for the last 14 years. And I know, speaking to Dennis, that he has a lot of love and pride in working closely with Coach Tursi every day. Dennis would probably tell you how Coach was able to encourage and motivate not only the top runners, but also develop the back-of-the-pack athletes. Next, you would hear from some of the great athletes who are here tonight, such as Ryan Harrison, Mike Houlihan, Rob Dobson, Billy Marsh, Ryan Leno. All of these folks are here tonight, and they would have some great Tursi memory to share, such as if Ryan were up here, he would tell you how Coach gave him a huge hug after shocking the world to win the 2-mile in the senior year event for himself. If Rob Dobson were up here, I hope the Hall of Fame Committee's taking notes. If Dobson were up here, he would talk about how they finally got to the top of the mountain, delivering Coach's first state championship in 1997 in cross country. Unfortunately, I'm the only one up here. So with that said, I'll do my best not to disappoint you all. Mike Tursi was not a superstar runner in high school or in college, but he was the scrappiest competitor you would ever find, and the last one you'd want to find yourself next to on the starting line, because undoubtedly, you'd be the recipient of a couple of elbows. He ran for Monmouth Regional High School and York College. There are a few of his York College teammates here tonight. Coach met his lovely wife Leanne on the Wildwood Boardwalk, began a teaching career in special ed, and came to Modern Day in 1989. My relationship with Coach began in 1990 with him calling the house and begging me to come out for the cross-country team. What Coach didn't know at that time is that I had never run a step and I thought that I was a football player. Thank you, Coach, so much for having me come out for cross-country. In the time that Coach has been at Mater Dei, the number of championships that Coach's team have won could fill up a book. The Seraph teams led by Coach have won 11 division championships in cross country, 5 division titles in track, 3 parochial B state championships each in both cross country and track. He has been named Coach of the Year by the Asbury Park Press, as well as the Star Ledger. I myself remain fiercely proud of those first 3 division championships in cross country and can remember Coach's face and watching him lead the celebration in 1991, just as if it were yesterday, when we shocked the world and beat Henry Hudson. On the individual side, many of his athletes have won county, conference, and state titles. Names like Tom Namoli, Dobson, Houlihan, Julis, Lino, Namoli, the list goes on and on and on and on. Coach's determination and grit has also earned him great respect in the greater running community. He has matched wits with all of the top names in coaching over the last 25 years, such as the legendary Jack Rafter of Red Bank Catholic, who once hired a bagpiper just for our dual meet. No, Jim Shaw was not the bagpiper. When I asked Coach Rafter why he would go to the trouble of hiring a bagpiper, he said that it was the only way he could get his team as fired up as Coach Tursi was going to get out. Coach's arch rival on that day was Coach Vinny Whitehead from Henry Hudson, and we had a lot of wars with the Henry Hudson team in those days. That was a fierce rivalry, and that rivalry has continued into the years to come with some spirited contests that the Seraph teams have had with St. Rose. I'm not sure if any of you are aware, but one of the St. Rose coaches through the years was the renowned Runner's World journalist Mark Bloom. In 2003, Bloom wrote a book. I don't know if any of you have read it. It was called God on the Starting Line. It was published, sold many copies, and it chronicled the St. Rose season in 2003. Of course, like the Fonz on Happy Days, Tursi would become the breakout character in this book. In the novel, Mr. Bloom perfectly describes Coach. He says, and I'm quoting him from the book, "Tursi seems more nurturing than tough, but he is one of the coaches fit enough to run around the course." Mr. Bloom goes on with one of my favorite quotes of all time. "Tursi's thick in the middle himself, but the guy manages to beat me up the steepest hill every time." Myself these days, I can certainly sympathize. Mr. Bloom goes on to finish by saying, "I swear, it's his killer instinct. Tursi possesses an edge that I don't. He wears a look that says his team has come to play, or it'll be a long bus ride back to the mom." I distinctly remember Coach telling me that when the book goes up to the film version, that he wanted Tom Cruise to portray it. I would certainly buy a ticket myself. Well, Kathy, I think my 2 to 3 minutes is probably just about up, and I'd like to be invited back to the Hall of Fame dinner at some point. So, in short, I'd like to conclude. The introduction of Mike Tursi into the Mater Dei Prep Hall of Fame is something that you on the committee may never be able to understand how important this is to all involved with the Mater Dei cross-country and track community. He is the consummate father, family man, and of course he is still in the process of leaving a true lasting legacy as our coach. It is with the absolute deepest conviction and a swelling sense of pride in my chest that I introduce to you the one, the only Coach Mike Tursi.